Hi there! Today I have spent a most wonderful time exploring the Côte de Bar. Now the Côte de Bar is perhaps one of the lesser known regions of Champagne, but in my mind at the moment this is an area where there is such vitality. There is so much going on, and I was lucky enough to spend the morning with Colette, a local winemaker, an organic grower, and she is such a great ambassador for the Côte de Bar. So here I'm going to let her tell you her story, her family's story, all about this wonderful region, Côte de Bar, and organic grape growing. Stay with me and listen to Colette's story.
The climate, of course, and the soil, because it's completely different from the north of Champagne. The clay, the limestone clay soil gives wines very strong in the mouth, very long in the mouth, very fruity, good minerality. So you can have the same variety of grapes on the different part of the Champagne. The Champagne will be completely different. That's the most important in Champagne. I didn't choose a lot of variety grapes. I know the place is very good for, the soil is very good for Pinot Noir especially. Now we want to produce our own wine, so it was necessary to grow Pinot Blanc or Chardonnay. Pinot Blanc because historically it was here and gives wines completely different from the Chardonnay, so it was interesting to keep this kind of variety grapes. But my grandmother, my great-uncle did that for me. Just to follow the way of growing, and I think it's very important for the history of my vineyard. After I grew some Chardonnay because it was possible in some piece of land to grow Chardonnay because there was no problem with frost at springtime, so have this Chardonnay. So it was important for the quality and the blend of my wines. In fact, it's easy because the vineyard comes from my parents and great-parents. This is my great-mother and my great-uncle with my great-great-parents. There were probably no more than 20 years on this photography. And my great-uncle, Henri Barrois, wrote his diary, like this one. And in this diary, he explained what he do every day in the vineyard. So I now have white grapes, Pinot Noir, I know everything about the vineyard. The same part of the vineyard, the name of the vineyard, I know it's the same. So I know the vineyard I grow has more than 100 years. So I know everything about that. I don't have a favorite variety grapes. I love some way of pruning. For example, I like to prune the Chardonnay because the way of pruning is completely different. It's very interesting, it's very technical, so I like this way of pruning. Pinot Blanc, it's very special, but you don't have a lot of wood, so when you prune it, you have to be careful. It's completely different, but I don't have a special variety grapes, no. We used to have Pinot Noir, of course, but many sorts of before the Champagne air producing, we had a lot of many sorts of variety grapes, like Gamay, for example, Pinot Gris, Direct. So in 1911, we had so many sorts of grapes, and it was not important. The most important is you have to get a good plant to give grapes, and our history is that in the 80s, the big brand, the Champagne houses, asked us to grow Pinot Noir because they need Pinot Noir for their cuvée, for their brand, and it's what my parents did. But it changed now because the young wine growers want to have their own champagne. They are champagne maker and not so sell grapes as I done and my family did before. So it's necessary for us to have many sorts of grape to make different sorts of champagne and for the blend. It was came back in the vineyard in 1992, sorry. I went to school for 2 years to learn my job because I was a travel agent. so it was completely different. I used to go to the vineyard with my parents, but I was not able to be a wine grower, so it was necessary for me to go to school. So I learned my job, non-organic vineyard, and a few years later I was pregnant, I was having a baby, and I wanted to change my way of life. In fact, at the beginning of the 19th, 92, 93, it was difficult to sell a bottle of champagne. And with the young wine growers of Champagne, we decided to make wines completely different, to get a better price for the bottles, to find other markets. So it was very interesting. And I went to Burgundy to visit wine growers, practice biodynamic wine growing, organic wine growing, or even non-organic, but they grow differently. And for me, it was very special. When I came back, I say, you're not your job very well. There's something else to do. And because I was pregnant, I have to protect my health. And I said, what would happen to my child, to my baby, if I died with cancer? So I have to change everything. I start to be informed in biodynamic wine growing. It's very important and very interesting, this kind of wine growing. You know, usually the children comes with you in the vineyard, and I don't want them to touch the chemicals on the leaves. I say, no, it's more better to breathe the chemicals. No, I say, no. I prefer to change now. It was difficult because I was only a grape seller, some person grape seller. So when you have no harvest, you have no money. And when you have no money, you have no money. I started my first try in an organic vineyard in 1999. I made my certification in 2006. And even when I asked, you know, the form to fill for organic, for EcoCert, I keep the form for 2 months to say, okay, you do, you don't. I say, okay, have to do. So it was difficult. And I started just a small part of my vineyard because I only sell grapes. So if I have no grapes, I have no money. So it's a big decision to take. So I started with a small part, but I was needing my brother to help me on the tractors. And at the beginning, it was very difficult. He didn't want to help me. So the first time was absolutely difficult, but never mind. It was the way I wanted to do. And I converted my vineyard in 2006. I did that for my health, of course, first, because the chemicals you spray on the vineyard are terrible for your health. Health to protect, of course, the soil and the water, because I drink the water on the tap. So it was necessary to have good water. When you start your organic vineyard, you have to put money aside before to be sure there's no problem, and to keep a lot of juice in the tank, because you are allowed in Champagne to keep a part of your harvest in a tank if you have a bad harvest. The tank is in bigger houses. You have the person who buy the grapes keep the juice for you because they work the juice for you. So they keep the juice, and when you have no harvest, you are allowed to take back the juice. So in Champagne, it's a very good organization about that, because you keep a harvest in a tank. So it was possible. So when you have money, when you put money aside, and when you have this money, it's possible to start organic. The worst, it was 2012, no grapes at all. The mildew, it was so, day after day, you can see the grapes disappear completely. So at the beginning of June, you say, well, that's okay, I've got some grapes. And day after day, the grapes disappear. It was absolutely amazing to see that. So 2012, no grapes at all. It was very difficult, only because of the disease of mildew. And for the best for me, it was probably actually 2017. High quality in the Côte d'Ivoire. I test the clear wines, are absolutely great. So for me, it's one of the best vintage. The first thing is more difficult, it's to control the grass. Because usually when you stop herbicide, you have a lot of grass, many sorts of grass. It's very interesting, but it's very difficult. You have to employ more people. And the second thing is to control fertilizer. It's a good balance. You have to feed the vineyard, but not too much, because if you feed too much the vineyard, you have a lot of disease like mildew or oidium. So it's a first challenge you have to realize when you want to change, and you have to be sure of what you want to do. My village is here. Bertignolles, Église-sous-Bois is here. 7 kilometers. The highest point in the Champagne, point altitude is here, Arconville, but you have no point of view, it's in the middle of a wood. Here you have a point of view. The difference is 1 meter. As you know, we have, for the Champagne area, 150 kilometers between Épernay and Reims from the Côte des Bar. Two climate different, semi-continental climate here, semi-oceanic climate here. The soil different, Montagne de Reims, sable, Marne, Vallée de la Marne, and the Côte des Blancs with chalk, and here Kimmeridgian. But we have also near Troyes a small village called Mongueux on chalk, specialized in Chardonnay too. And the Côte des Bar, more than 50 kilometers between one part, this part and this part. Bar-sur-Seine and Bar-sur-Aube. Bar-sur-Aube is more specialized in Pinot Meunier. Bar-sur-Seine, Pinot Noir. So we need the slope to grow the vineyard because of the heat, of course, and because we need poor soil. Because if the soil is too rich, it gives a lot of wood, a lot of leaves, and maybe small grapes, a lot of small grapes. So for the vineyard, it's necessary to suffer to give the best, because when a plant will die, she gives fruits, you know, to have new plants. So the vineyard is like that. When the vineyard suffers, it gives a lot of grapes. And we need, because in Champagne is quite in the north, so we need a lot of sun. And the sun is more high on the slope than on the plateau. It's very particular, the Kimmeridgian, so you say this clay is more than 1,460,000 years. And when you soil a good soil, normal soil, this clay becomes brown soil normally. It's not very heavy. And you have some stone, and the particular are woven. You know, this stone, a lot of oysters. It's very typical from the Kimmeridgian. So it gives wines very fruity and very long in the mouth. When you drink wines here, it's still in your mouth for a long time. And I wanted to show you the small grey stones on the top. Yeah, it proves that you have piece of vineyard here since more than 200 years, because it's the first stone to remove to grow the vineyard. They put the stone on the top of the hill. It's always amazing to see the roots going through the stone to get food, to get water, and the minerality we need in our wines. When I start to be organic, I asked to Claude Bourguignon to come to make her hole to visit and to say if my soil is alive or not. My vineyard at this moment was only 17 years. Most part of the wood were between 40 and 50 centimeters. It was completely crazy. He said it's not possible. Your vineyard should have roots more than 3 meters deep, because there was too much fertilizer, so the roots, it's not necessary for them to go down. In organic, you stop that. So the roots have no way than to go to find the food, to find the water. It's necessary to find some superficial roots. You have to keep them. But when we come to a machine to take out the grass, anyway, the roots have to go down. And I saw that when I want to change a piece of vineyard, when sometimes it's dead, I take away to throw it, and you can see the roots like that, it's straight. So I think, okay, my vineyard is good about the roots, there's no problem. The first year when I started, Claude Bourguignon said you have to put some cereals between your row, or to make the soil, in fact, and to protect the soil, because he says springtime or summertime, you have to have something to cover the soil. He said when you go out, you don't go out completely without clothes. In winter or summer. So for the soil, it's the same thing. You have always to have something to protect yourself from the erosion. And to make the soil, you say you can spray cereals. It's what I did. Wheat and some other cereals after, for 3 years. It was impossible to grow. The soil is not good enough to produce cereals. In fact, you stop the chemicals in the soil, you have no wheat. You die of starvation. It's terrible. So when the soil is not good enough to produce cereals or things, you have to think about it. The first one, it will be Gaston Chèque. Gaston Chèque, In 1911, we have a big revolt, winemakers revolt, because we had to fight in the Côte d'Ivoire to stay in Champagne. And the leader of a revolt was Gaston Chek. So if it was possible, I will have a drink of champagne with him to thank him to be in Champagne today. And it will be probably a Blanc de Noir, only Pinot Noir, to explain how we changed the variety grapes in Côte d'Ivoire, why we have a lot of Pinot Noir. I will explain the history until 1911 and today. And the chance we have to have this kind of variety grape Pinot Noir is a fantastic variety grapes, and even on our soil. And the second person will be my great-uncle, Henri Barrois, who gave me his diary. It's very important because it's full of details, information about the way of life at the beginning of the 20th century. My great-uncle was born in 1884. My great-mother here was born in 1885, so very, very old. And I will have probably a Blanc de Blanc, Pinot Blanc with him, because I would like to thank him to grow Pinot Blanc. It's a chance for me to have these variety grapes in my vineyard. So I think we are very similar about the characters. We are very similar, and it will be very interesting to have a glass of champagne with him. And maybe if I have to choose a third person, it will be my father, because my father is dead. That's 10 years now. I didn't have a bottle of champagne at this moment, and I would like to explain how it was possible. And it was difficult for me to build my wine press, because he never helped me. My father is a special man who never gave his experience, even for the vineyard, even for the bees, nothing, never communicate, nothing. And I would like to explain to him how it was very important for me to get the history, thanks to my great-uncle, not him, and to explain that I would like him to be proud of me, of the job I have done with his wine.